billions in federal funds authorized by the American Rescue Plan are set to be funneled away from pandemic relief and instead diverted toward padding police and prison budgets across the country. That's according to new reporting in The Appeal. Last fall, the Alabama legislature reallocated $400 million of American Rescue Plan funds solely toward constructing new state prisons. For reference, Alabama lawmakers allocated only $80 million worth of pandemic relief cash toward aid for hospitals and nursing homes.
And across the country in Los Angeles, California, Alexis Oliver Ray reports that of the $600 million of relief money the city received, over half was instead funneled to the LAPD for, quote, payroll expenditures. The redirection of COVID relief comes with the express blessing of President Joe Biden, who confirmed at a press conference last June that lawmakers would allow as much as $350 billion with a B, dollars of American Rescue Plan money nationally to go toward, quote, addressing crime. So our rising panel is here to weigh in. Max Alvarez is host of the Working People podcast, editor-in-chief of the Real News Network, and author of The Work of Living. And Amy Tarkanian is a Republican strategist and the former chairwoman of the Nevada GOP. Welcome to you both.
Thanks,
Good morning.
And so, Max, the prison and police complex was just cash-strapped. What happened? Why'd they need this money all of a sudden? And does this have anything to do with the fact that now they're saying they have no money for COVID relief left?
It just might, Ryan. It just might. I mean, a lot of people on the internet will say that, we have these Joker moments, right? When you're watching events unfold and you feel like you're becoming the Joker. This is one of them for me. I'm watching this and I am just enraged and flabbergasted at what I'm seeing. And this is something that, we reported a bit as well over at the Real News. Eddie Conway, who himself was incarcerated as a political prisoner for 44 years, reported on Alabama allocate $400 million of federal COVID relief funds to build new prisons. And, just the kind of irony of that conversation taking place, was not lost on me. But I think it's also important for folks to remember a couple of other things about this. Right. So in Alabama, when the pandemic started, Alabama had twice the national poverty rate. You mentioned, Robbie, earlier that Alabama's the percentage of those federal COVID relief funds that it diverted to constructing these new prisons was 5 times the amount that they diverted to healthcare and nursing home facilities in a state that ran out of ICU beds at points during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is just bonkers to me. And yet, here in Baltimore and in Maryland too, Governor Larry Hogan is trying to make political hay out of his, quote, refund the police initiative when the police were never meaningfully defunded. In fact, as Brandon Soderberg and Jessel Noor report all the time for the Real News, we just keep throwing bad money after good at the police here, and it does not correlate to a drop in crime. It just correlates to more ridiculous, contracts with companies that are supplying the police department with new toys like a Throwbot or this sonic, triangulation technology that supposedly lets cops say, oh, that was a gunshot, and they arrest people. And there have often been times when they arrested people and they weren't even guilty of the crime. So we're using all this money on toys and fancy equipment that doesn't even work, while real people and institutions across the country are cash strapped and suffering. It's just madness.
It's like that, what's the meme, the Pawn Stars meme? Should be more money for suffering people. Best I can do is prisons. So, Amy, what do you think about? And my view is, I don't know. Maybe hospitals, nursing homes might still need money. I don't know how much we need money for masks and things of that nature anymore. But to just take the money and then give it into police coffers, maybe that should make some people who support a lot more government spending, I guess, reticent. Where does it end up? That's a question I always have.
Sure. Well, I think that this administration set the precedence, actually, for everyone being nervous and scared just to live their daily lives. And it doesn't matter if you have the greatest healthcare, if you have the most wonderful hospitals, if you have the best schools. If you don't have safety, then you don't have anything really at the end of the day. And so that's why I think we see a lot of this money now being diverted back to either jails or to police forces, because it doesn't matter which party you're affiliated with. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that your house is safe, that your car will still be there in the morning, that your children will get to school without being assaulted, that you can make it to work without your tires being slashed. I mean, it's common sense that people would want to feel safe. And so, my husband is actually a Douglas County commissioner up in northern Nevada. And he even said that the money that was allocated, each jurisdiction, like you had mentioned, dealing with a number of other states, is actually given they are able to put it into their general fund and then to find out whatever use they find necessary. And so that's what my husband's actually dealing with right now. And so it very well may be jails, it may be police force, but they are allowed to do it and move money around. And so it's going to be interesting to see how each jurisdiction does decide to use their money. Now, it's also, I think, this administration's fault with the way that the PPP loans were handed out. So we're screaming about, businesses not getting the funding, but then we look at the way that that was divvied up. It wasn't fair, because I know construction companies that are doing very well that received millions of dollars, and also casinos were bailed out, while the struggling small business owners were left to hang or close their doors. So there's a lot of funny business going on with the way that money's allocated.
Well, the PPP loans were a bipartisan project enacted in March 2020 under the Trump administration, right? And administered by the Trump administration.
Okay, well, fair enough. But I'll tell you that the way that the money, though, when you find out now where it was actually sent, it is very concerning. So, okay, I'll go ahead and admit that it's both people's fault. It's both sides' fault. But at the end of the day, the money's not being actually used for the original intent. And I think that's what's really concerning.
And Max, the $300 billion sticker price really jumps out at me. If the administration had just kind of casually moved $300 billion from pandemic relief into climate investments, it would be the biggest climate investment in world history. And yet, this is just a little extra cheese for the cops.
That's a great way to put it. And you're absolutely right. And I guess the thing that, again, is just it's so egregious that we almost lose sight of it. But, I really want to emphasize for people, and ask the question, why do we not put the amount of budgetary scrutiny on police and the military and the prison industrial complex that we put on any other government service, right? We have been watching in real time as Louis DeJoy has been gutting the United States Postal Service in broad daylight. The most beloved government institution in the country has been gutted, and now we have delays. We have workers who are working their butts off just to try to keep up, while someone who is running the U.S. Postal Service, who has a vested interest in private parcel delivery, is doing this. And yet, we are still talking about, the USPS is not cost effective. What is cost effective about all this money that we are diverting into police that is not translating to lowered crime? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills over here. And another thing to really emphasize, right, is that this is really a question of political will. This is a question of really re-examining where those resources are going and what they are doing for our people and our country, right? And one side has the will, the other side does not. Alabama is a perfect example of that, right? When people did object to Alabama using $400 million to build new prisons, people pushed back, and the U.S. Treasury actually said, yeah, actually, this is not necessarily kosher, and they did it anyway. Alabama just went through and they said, okay, well, we're still gonna build it. What are you gonna do about it? And now everyone's like, well, I guess we're not gonna do anything. So we actually, and in fact, now Biden and the Democrats are pushing hard to say, no, we love the police. We're gonna refund the police. It shows how, with the police never being meaningfully defunded, these issues that take up so much oxygen in our political discourse aren't actually based in any sort of fact. They're based in feeling, and that is a real problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Max, Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Coming up, Nancy Pelosi's husband has had some extremely good luck in the stock market lately, and it's renewing calls to ban lawmakers' spouses from insider trading. Yeah, luck. We'll discuss Mr. Pelosi's big investment next.